Hey guys, Alex Corey with cultivatedchange.com here. We're back continuing our spring gardening series. In this video we're going to go over bed prep. It's a nice day here. Unlike other parts of the country, it's actually probably about 45-50 and the sun's out. So I'm going to take the opportunity and turn over a bed with you, show you what I do. And I haven't actually done a pH test in the soil here since I've been using this property, so decided to do it on camera with you guys. We'll go over a real basic pH test, and I'll show you the amendments and how I do a bed turnover coming up. All right, first thing we're gonna do, I haven't done this in a bit, is do a real simple pH test. This is about as simple as one of those strips that you just get. It's hard to do it in soil because you need a diluted mixture. So I got a little soil from one of the beds we're gonna turn over, and then this is just distilled water. Most city water or tap water is alkaline or acidic, and you want neutral pH so it doesn't mess up your reading. So for this guy, we are going to fill this test vial with half the vial of the solution, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of soil in there. It's gonna end up settling to the bottom anyway. So that's half full of soil. And then we're going to pour some distilled water in it. Mix it up. Probably a little overfull actually, since I'm gonna have to put some drops in it. We'll let the sediment settle to the bottom. Get everything else ready. The only reason you want to wait is because that water is pretty murky and you won't be able to tell the color difference. This doesn't work. This is meant for, it's by General Hydroponics, so it's meant for hydroponic, just using water. Soil gets in the way of things, but I couldn't find the paper pH test strips anywhere. So this will do. This will give us a ballpark. We're not being super precise here. My guess is that soil is always acidic, just because growing fruiting crops and just turning over beds in general with leafy greens acidifies soil. Just you're dumping matter back in and you're pulling minerals out. So rotting waste will nitrify the soil, and then you're pulling all your alkalizing minerals, so calcium, phosphorus, all those out of the soil. So most likely we're going to be acidic, and we want to be acidic. Ideal range for veggies, this says 5.5 to 6.5. I don't agree with that at all. I do. It's 6.2 to 6.5 is the ideal range, where you get all of the elements are available at their most balanced levels. If you go to alkaline, you start locking nitrogen out. If you go to acidic, you start locking a lot of trace minerals out. So if you can get anywhere from 6 to 7, that's good. A little more acidic will help heavy fruiting crops. So if you're doing tomatoes and peppers, they do like heavily acidic soil. We're gonna add a couple drops to this. I think it said 3 to 5. Yep. And then we're going to tap it. And if you can see, that's a shade of green. And that's about, yeah, that shade is, if you can see it in the sunlight, It's about 6'5". So it's on the darker side of 6'5". So we're in ballpark. That actually confirms what I thought, is I add a ton of lime every time I do it, and I do a lot more greens and root vegetables than I do heavy fruiting crops because I don't have that much sun. So we're gonna add very small amounts of lime when we do the bed. Most people add lime as an alkalizing agent, but I do it for a source of calcium. Not many things have calcium in high quantities in them, and I use if you can see this here, this is high cal lime, and high cal lime by definition usually is going to be, this is the bag it pulls from, 38% elemental calcium. So 38% by weight of this bag is calcium. They always recommend you do about 5 pounds per 100 square feet. My beds are 2.5 by 30-ish. So it's going to be 60, 80. I will add just short of 5 pounds to a bag just for calcium. So my general recommendations are, for me, because I have a very high turnover rate on my beds, I'll bring them over there, and actually I'll show you in front of the garden beds. We'll be right back. Just a quick note, since I remember this. If you're doing this for any substantial area, you probably won't be using a little vial if you're doing it, but if you're doing this on like a small farm, you can either send it to a lab and they'll tell you the NPK content, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium content, as well as some of the bigger minerals and pH. But if you're doing this not just on a 600 square foot garden, you'll take samples from 5 different places around the area and do this for each, and then come up to an average for them. Because this is only 600 square feet, the only difference in soil composition that I will have is what crops I have used there in the past. So if where I had the tomatoes and peppers last year would likely be more acidic than where I've just had greens that I rotate every 45 days or so. But this was good, so we'll head over to the garden. Okay, it's my favorite place to think. Do a lot of philosophizing in the garden as well. Just clears the air and gives your brain room to wander. Anyway, so we'll go over what I usually do for a bed prep. These are 30 feet long. They're about 2 feet wide. They vary a little bit. Some are a little wider, and I use those for direct seeded crops, but these 3 on the end here, actually probably these 4, are going to be direct seeded crops. So I'm going to do those first because my transplants, seedlings we have going, aren't ready yet, and nor would I put them in this soon. March 15th-ish is about when the transplants will go in, but direct seeded can be March 1st in zone 6B, 7A, and I'm actually heading down to see some family in about a week or so, so I won't be here right before the seeds go in. So I'm going to have everything ready, give the microbial life a chance to settle. I apologize for the noise in the background. There's construction going on. But my usual bed prep, most people only do this once in higher quantities and leave it for the year. I turn over my beds because I do lots of high rotation root crops and greens. So I put things down constantly because I'm constantly sapping things out of the soil. Like you just saw, I put down some pulverized high calcium lime. That's at least 36% elemental calcium. That's about just the right amount for the pH since it's a little high. I use plant tone. It's by Espoma. It's a mixture of bone meal, alfalfa meal, feather meal, composted poultry manure. It's got a little of everything. It's 5-3-3, so 5% nitrogen, 3% phosphorus, 3% potassium by weight. It smells awful, which means it works. And it's slow release. It's got a little bit of immediately water-soluble nitrogen, so a little fertilizer is immediately available, but it's got a lot of slow-releasing things, which I love. This is rock phosphate, 0220, and I put this on heavily, but it takes forever to get absorbed into the soil and broken down into phosphorus by the microbes. So I just liberally put that on every time I do a bed prep, and it takes up to a year to absorb. And this is azomite. I will either use azomite or green sand, and that is a trace mineral source. a good amount of potassium too, but that covers your molybdenum, iron, boron, zinc, manganese, all of those trace elements that you need, same in the human body, but that most fertilizers don't contain. So I'll apply that pretty heavily, not as heavily as lime, but maybe half this bag will go in an entire bed. Depends on what I'm putting in there. Greens don't uptake so much, so it's not tomato or pepper and eggplant. If someone's going to be in there for 4 months and produce fruit, so we'll see. But that's my general slew of things I put on. I do usually like green sand because it's got a higher iron content and it breaks up clay better, but I do not have clay here. I'm gonna take from the most finished compost pile, and here's my compost video. I'm gonna take from that. I'm gonna put probably an inch on the top of this after I've iron raked it, just to disrupt the weeds that are currently here. And we'll spread some compost on, and then we'll apply all the amendments down. You'll just see me doing that extremely quickly, and then I will give you some parting thoughts. So that's the gist of it, guys. So we did some fertilizer, we did some lime, a touch of lime just because our pH was right around where we wanted it to be. Did some rock phosphate and some azomite. I didn't do anything too heavily because I haven't had anything super heavy fruiting in this bed, and these 3 beds will just be direct seeded. When we do that side of the garden, we'll go a little heavier on everything. And I ran out of a couple things as I was doing this, but the compost is actually quite frozen because it is still pretty cold here. So I will do a layer of compost later, right before I go to direct seed. And the goal is to work the amendments into the entire bed. I don't go below an inch or an inch and a half down. So you saw me just tilling things with an iron rake. I like the minimal till approach. You'll find people with no till or doing a full till. I like somewhere in the middle, so I leave the brunt of the bed intact, the ecosystem there, and then I tilth. So I will basically just go down far enough to grab and break up old root systems, maybe 2 inches down max, and that's where I'll spread the amendments. They work their way into the soil as it rains and over time. I just try to get them off the top of the soil and worked in, just so the elements don't batter them and the wind doesn't sweep them away, because we get pretty vicious winds here. But that bed's pretty much done. I will make everything a little more manicured before I go to direct seed, and we'll do another video then. Until then, build your community, build your resilience. See you soon.